DC Multiverse!
So what do we have here today? Mongul? Woo! Todd is going in deep with this line. We don't get a Mongul figure very often. One from DC Direct, and technically one from Mattel. For a DC villain as iconic as Mongul, because let's face it, if you didn't know who he was before, you certainly knew who he was after for the man who has everything. It sure is nice that Todd's giving us all 10 inches of Mongul's love. You know what would have been cool? If this figure had came with a Black Mercy. The figure as you see it here comes with, well, the figure, and a trading card, and an action figure stand, and a nasty, sadistic looking grin. It sure would have been nice if we had got an exact representation of which Mongul this is. At first I thought maybe this was the Mongul who replaced the Mongul who was, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Because as you can see, this version of Mongul really is kind of his own thing. I mean, the image on the back of the box isn't exactly the same as this Mongul. And really, I mean, none of the images that I looked at and found online are actually this Mongul. So I think this is kind of Todd's little amalgam of the parts that he thought were possibly the most interesting to look at. Either way, this is a fantastic looking rendition of Mongul. I really like this. I may or may not paint these wrist bracers here a silver color to kind of match the boots and the belt, just as they're not a green color in this picture. And these boots are fantastic. These are so big. I would not want to get kicked by these. Hoofed, booted in the junk, or even the taint, if you will. This would be really nasty. They look like gigantic space biker boots. And there's a lot going on with that belt region. Plenty of detail, gigantic buns, more detail, gigantic abs. You got a little bit of textured detail down the side of the pants here. You got this contraption. Whoa, what is that? No, honestly, what is that? I don't know what it is. It's just there. I think it looks cool, but I honestly have no idea what it is. The chest area for this, you know, it's pretty much par for the course. It's a little bit different. Like, this really is Todd's kind of own take on the character. But DC must have liked it because it has to pass by the bigwigs upstairs. They have to say, yeah, we'll sign off on this one. Here we got that head covering here. I like to think of it as his steel bonnet, metal bonnet time. And this face is awesome for this guy. He looks like a sadistically laughing, evil, rip your face on and use the flesh as toilet paper kind of character. Which is exactly what it should look like. You got the texture of his skin and the big veins popping out here like he's been doing all kinds of roids and drinking creatine, hanging out at the gym. Yeah, I have absolutely no qualms with how this figure looks. I think he looks really awesome. Or is he? The question is, now, how articulated is he? Well, the waist has a lot of articulation. You know, you're not gonna get him in any super dynamic poses with this, but that is a fair amount of waist articulation. Nothing in the torso whatsoever. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think I'm actually okay with it, because this is one of those cases where I feel like if they had have actually had that torso articulation right in here, it might have actually taken away from the overall look of the figure. I suppose they could have gotten away with it, but I'm okay with it not being there either way. We have the great big arms on the rounded hinge. He doesn't have the socket there, the rounded little socket, because he doesn't need it. There is movement on the inside as well, but the actual armor is what becomes the socket piece. We have a single jointed elbow. What can it do? Ooh, that is sad. That's sad. How the heck is he going to get a postage note off his back if it gets stuck there? He can't barely articulate it, but he does have back and forth, but not even 90 degrees. Ah, what a poo sandwich. And of course you can see there's a single hinge here in the wrist, so forward about that, back about that, and of course it's also going to tightly, you can hear it, spin around 360. The head does have some articulation, like it'll move somewhat, not the greatest. His, you know, it's inside of this collar piece here, but I mean, I suppose that could be a little worse. Could also be a little better. And down here, of course, he's got that McFarlane groin the way that he do, and you can hear it clicking. There's really not that much. If I push it, I can get about that. That's about it. And Ooh, he's got jack all for this. Not much going on there. I gotta really push it. Well, nothing outwards. And I feel like outwards is actually the more important of the direction for it to go, not inwards. So that's kind of not so good either. He does have double jointed knees. Oh, they're tight. There you go. Great big knees. They're sort of weird looking, but I've seen definitely worse from McFarlane toys, so this is about middle of the road, and they work, so I'm not going to complain about them. And really, I'm just going to pose mine up on the shelf and just stand in there, so it's not really that much of a big deal to me. And then the ankles, of course, have the, oh, they're purple. Would have made more sense if these were silver and not purple, I suppose. But he does have a pivot and a toe hinge, and how much forward and back? About that forward and that back. Which means that this right here is about what you're going to be able to get him into. Yeah, you're not going to be getting him into any crazy poses, I promise you that. But anyway, so what do I think about this version of MONGUL, Todd McFarlane's Superman Villains version of MONGUL? You know, I really like this. I was waiting for Todd to do a MONGUL. He still needs to do a Dark Side and a real Doomsday. Let's build up those Superman level threats in the McFarlane DC Multiverse action figure line. I think that he looks great. He's a fantastically designed looking figure. He does have fairly limited articulation. For someone like me, that's not a huge deal. For someone like you, that might be a no-go. But certainly at this point, if you're looking for your definitive MONGUL figure, then this would be the one in my opinion. So I like him. I'm definitely glad that I picked him up. And I think if you see him hanging out on the pegs, run for your life! He's going to kill you. He's MONGUL. That means War World can't be that far behind. You're going to be enslaved.